Our main character is Satomi. Since childhood, he has been a victim of natural disasters. While he was unsure where to go amidst the refugee camp, suddenly, a monster appeared out of nowhere and charged straight into the middle of the camp. It stopped right in front of him, giving him a fright. 10 years later, he has grown up and works for a private security company. The inspector here doesn't believe him, but Satomi wants him to stay on topic and get to the main point. The inspector leads him to the 4th floor. He had heard reports of monsters, but as a police officer, he couldn't go in without private security being present. The inspector inquires about Satomi's partner since private security always works in pairs, but Satomi just now remembers that he lost his partner along the way. Upon arriving at the scene, the inspector hears that 2 people had broken the rules and gone inside, prompting Satomi to kick the door open. Inside, he sees a masked man. The 2 officers were already dead. Satomi initially thinks the masked man is an ally, but the man admits to killing the 2 officers, leading Satomi to attack him. The people outside who tried to enter were all dealt with. Satomi rushes forward and kicks the masked man in the head. Even though the man's head turned almost 180 degrees, he could still twist it back to normal. The man then needs to leave for something and tells Satomi that he will be the one to destroy this world. Satomi had to let the target escape and instructs the inspector to clean up and seal off the area. Meanwhile, Satomi's partner, Inju, has been looking for him and encounters an injured man. She realizes he has been bitten by a monster and asks if he has any last words. The man then transforms into a spider and shoots webbing at Inju before kicking her away. Satomi and the inspector arrive and shoot at it, but regular bullets are useless. Only black bullets made from a special metal can prevent them from regenerating. Inju returns and kicks the spider to pieces. She runs to Satomi and hugs him, informing the inspector that she and Satomi are a pair. However, the inspector recognizes Inju as a cursed child. Both Satomi and Inju remember that it's discount time at the supermarket, so they run off. The inspector is left to clean up the mess. He knows that children like Inju are born to fight monsters. People like Satomi are designated to control the abilities of these children. They are humanity's hope. Afterward, he meets his boss, Kisara. She is very upset with him because he was so focused on the supermarket discounts that he forgot to collect the payment from the police. When they called back, they refused to pay. As a result, he brought back 2 bags of bean sprouts. She finds managing the company difficult because she has an employee like him. This month, both of them will be starving. Kisara has not yet found the source of the infection, and no one has seen it, so she will have to investigate further. She then needs to go to the hospital. She remembers how he used to set a goal to find his parents, believing they were still alive, but he no longer likes to talk about it and thinks his parents are dead. He then goes to see his teacher, who is also a coroner. When he arrives, she scares him a bit and wonders how he can survive being lazy and useless. She wants him to change if he wants Kisara to notice him. Kisara has protected him from her brother for a long time, but now he is confident that he is strong enough to protect Kisara in return. She gives him a plate of food, and of course, no one dares to eat it. He came here to ask about the source of the infection. She explains to him the mechanism of the monster virus, which, when infected and developed to the point of becoming a monster, produces a new ability. So, it is possible that the monster they are hunting can camouflage itself. But he and Inju will not let that monster run rampant for too long. In the evening, he and Inju eat only bean sprouts, and Inju happily eats them, even praising the taste. He wants Inju to put on some proper clothes. After eating, he cleans up and injects Inju with a stabilizing agent before going to bed. Inju does not want to let him sleep without some playful antics, so she disturbs him. The next morning, he and Inju have breakfast and head to school. Inju assures him that no one has figured out her true identity. She goes to school and seems very happy, which makes him feel relieved. He knows the nature of cursed children is that they are born to mothers infected with the virus. Because these children can suppress the virus and gain extraordinary strength, many people do not consider them human. Humanity has been forced to build pillars made of a metal that monsters hate to survive. After many experiments and failures, humanity has prepared to face them. Many may see children like Inju as a curse, but they must admit that these children are the weapons to fight against the monsters. These children are humanity's last hope. While Satomi is at school, Kisara calls to inform him that the Ministry of Defense has assigned them a task. Both head out, and as soon as they arrive, they are blocked by a man who looks down on Kisara because she is so young. This man causes trouble for Satomi as well, but his superior tells him to return to his position. They then sit at the meeting table, and the general allows them to retreat because after the plan starts, they will not be able to retreat anymore. The head of Tokyo, Tenchi, calls in. Beside Tenchi is Kisara's grandfather, the one who adopted her. Tenchi assigns them the task of finding the source of the infection and retrieving a box for him. Kisara asks what's in the box that requires top agents, but Tenchi does not answer. Suddenly, a masked man appears. He stands in the middle of the room and introduces himself as Haruko. He got in by killing a few guards in his way. He also has an adopted daughter named Hina. He is here because he wants to join the race. He reveals that the box contains the treasure of the 7 stars. He wants them to bet their lives on this race to make it more exciting. The brash man from earlier charges with a sword, but gets disarmed. When he shoots, Haruko blocks the bullets with a shield. He has replaced some of his body parts with machinery made from black metal. He reintroduces himself as Haruko, a former Special Forces operative from the Mechanized Unit 787, part of the Human Evolution Project. He then launches the bullets embedded in his shield around the room. Satomi quickly pulls Kisara down to avoid them. Haruko gives Satomi a gift before leaving. Suddenly, someone rushes in to announce that the chairman of the executive board, who was the only one absent from the meeting, has been found dead, with his head missing. Satomi understood what was in the gift, and Tenchi ordered them to find the box before Haruko. If they failed, Haruko would use it to destroy the black metal pillars. Afterward, Satomi and Inju went shopping, and on the way, they encountered a cursed child. The girl was accused of theft and assault. The police arrived to arrest her, and although Inju wanted to help, Satomi held her back. The girl was taken away, and Inju blamed Satomi for not saving her. Feeling remorseful, Satomi followed the police and discovered that they had shot the girl. He was heartbroken to see that not everyone viewed cursed children favorably. He then realized the girl was still alive and took her to the hospital for treatment. Later, he encountered Haruko again. Haruko wanted Satomi to join his side, as he also viewed the city as a mistake. Satomi, of course, refused, prompting Haruko to send Hina to attack him. Inju arrived to help Satomi, and Haruko tried to bribe Satomi with a suitcase full of money. Satomi firmly rejected it, and Haruko warned that he would regret it and change his mind by the next day. The following day, Satomi heard that Inju's identity as a cursed child had been revealed. The teacher accused Satomi of hiding this fact, but Satomi questioned if they would have allowed Inju to enroll if they had known. Returning home to find Inju missing, he headed to the outskirts to search for her. Tenchi had tried to implement policies to integrate cursed children, but it seemed those policies did little to help in this society. Satomi searched through a sewer to find a refuge for cursed children. An empathetic man living there taught the children how to control their powers and hide their identities. Satomi asked about Inju, but the man had not seen her. Satomi searched there because it was Inju's hometown. The man advised Satomi to find a new partner, as civil security agents like him often saw the children as tools. Satomi hated that naive way of thinking. Over the year he spent with Inju, he transformed her from a lifeless shell into a cheerful child. He apologized for raising his voice and then left. The man did not believe that Inju could leave someone as kind as Satomi. Satomi then went to meet the teacher, who made him realize how his thinking was different from the norm. His perspective on cursed children was vastly different from others, which was why he was so resentful. Later, he heard that Inju had returned to class and went to see for himself, only to find her being shunned by her classmates. No one stood up to protect her. So Satomi took Inju away and told her that they were no longer her friends and she should transfer schools. He assured her that he would always be by her side, even if the whole world turned its back on her. Suddenly, a helicopter arrived, and Kisara informed them that they had located the infectious monster. Both boarded the helicopter and discovered that the spider had used its web to form wings and was flying in the sky. This explained why many had not found it, as no one would think a spider could fly. Inju descended first, and Satomi instructed the pilot to fly lower. He rappelled down and stumbled. However, after a few kicks, Inju nearly killed the spider and retrieved the box. She believed that as long as she fought and protected her friends, they would change their views of her. Satomi then approached the box when Haruko appeared and tried to snatch it from him. Inju was forced to fight Hina. Satomi charged to attack, but Haruko's armor blocked him, and Haruko shot him. Haruko then used his shield to pin Satomi against a rock. Satomi had to tell Inju to run and get help. Just as Inju ran off, Hina stabbed Satomi twice, and he took 2 more bullets from Haruko, causing him to fall into the river. He later woke up with Kisara by his side. She informed him that he had been in a coma for a day, and his heart started beating again at the end of surgery. Haruko had taken the box, which contained something that could summon a level 5 monster. Level 5 is the highest rank of monsters, characterized by their enormous size and immunity to the black metal pillars. Their existence could cause a mass extinction, like what happened 10 years ago. Haruko had fled the city to begin the summoning, and the government had launched a manhunt. Satomi wanted to go stop him. Even though he knew he might die, Satomi was ready for it. Kisara showed him that Inju had been lying next to him since the surgery ended. Tenchi then called and expressed his desire for Satomi to join the mission to capture Haruko, a reason Satomi surely understood. Satomi agreed to join, and the teacher brought him some gear and a few vials of medicine for emergencies. He recalled when she had modified his body 10 years ago. Although she knew it was unforgivable, he had never resented her for it. Satomi then reunited with Inju, and together they set off. They, along with other pairs, were flown out of the city by helicopter and dropped into the forest. After moving for a while, Satomi and Inju encountered a level 4 monster, forcing them to flee. They temporarily descended into a ravine to avoid it. Later, they noticed a light coming from an old house and decided to investigate. Inside, they found a young girl. Satomi recognized her as the partner of the person who had caused trouble for him at the meeting. Seeing that the girl was injured, Satomi sent Inju to keep watch outside while he tended to the girl's wounds. The girl introduced herself as Keo, and her partner was Xiaojin. She and Xiaojin had been separated after encountering a large monster. In a panic, Keo had used explosive rounds, causing them to be split up. They had also dealt with a few other pairs on the way because Xiaojin feared others would take the reward. Keo was envious of Inju for having someone kind like Satomi. Despite having to kill people, Keo believed she would get used to it eventually. Satomi reminded her that killing was a terrifying thing and that it was even more frightening to become accustomed to it. Keo found him to be kind, but also mysterious and intimidating. She admitted that Satomi's words were true, and that he had made her understand feelings she had never known before. Suddenly, Xiaojin called to report that he had found Haruko. The 3 of them set off together, but along the way, Keo stayed behind to handle some followers, leaving Xiaojin in Satomi's care. When Satomi reached the designated spot, he found Xiaojin and many others already dead. Haruko appeared, and Kisara believed Satomi would prevail. She recalled how many years ago, when her parents were murdered, Satomi had lost an arm, a leg, and an eye while protecting her. And now Satomi managed to punch through Haruko's armor. He introduced himself as a former Special Forces operative from the Mechanized Unit 787, part of the Human Evolution Project. Haruko, feeling alive, fought even more fiercely. The 2 adults then clashed with the 2 children. Haruko continued trying to recruit Satomi to his side, but Satomi repeatedly refused, prompting Haruko to target Inju. Satomi rushed to protect her and took a devastating blow. It seemed he would die there, but he used the vials of medicine given by the teacher. These would grant him regenerative abilities like those of a monster. Using them meant accepting that he would become a cursed person. Without hesitation, Satomi injected himself and gained strength. He recovered and landed a powerful punch on Hina, sending her flying. He then pierced Haruko's armor and kicked him, shattering his mask and sending him into the sea. Haruko's signal disappeared, but the bad news was that the level 5 monster had been summoned. Kisara had a plan. She pointed Satomi to an abandoned cannon nearby. This gun had been long abandoned, but its power was enough to take down the level 5 monster with a single shot. Satomi's job was to activate it, while Kisara would handle the firing. However, an issue arose, forcing Satomi to check the ammunition room, only to find it empty. He had to remove his own arm to use as a substitute shell. The magnetic field prevented Kisara from controlling it, so Satomi had to aim manually. Satomi struggled to aim at the target 50 kilometers away with one hand. Unable to steady himself, Inju stepped in to help. She calmed him down, and they fired. The monster took the hit and couldn't survive, exploding into pieces. Inju then fell asleep inside the gun, while Satomi went to find Keo. He found her severely injured. She asked about her partner, and he lied, saying he was safe. Keo, on the verge of transforming into a monster, asked Satomi to help her die while still human. She saw him as her only friend and advised him to follow the light if he ever got lost. Satomi had to shoot Keo to end her suffering. The helicopter arrived to rescue the survivors. Satomi then went to meet his foster father, who was also Kisara's grandfather. He knew that he was behind the recent events and had deliberately used Hina to demonstrate the danger of cursed children. His foster father hated those children because they were the reason his wife died. Satomi chose to believe in Inju and left. He wouldn't forget the kindness his foster father had shown him, but he couldn't agree with his actions. As he left, Satomi recalled asking Tenchi about the true nature of the monsters, but she hadn't disclosed anything. He realized that to access classified information, he needed to improve his ranking in the civil security profession. Thus, he decided to reunite with Inju and continue their life together. He also aimed to improve his rank to uncover the nature of the monsters and the reason for his existence. Satomi then returned to Kisara's place to train with Inju. Inju had achieved a speed surpassing that of bullets, but Satomi reminded her not to kick high while wearing a skirt. Kisara noted that Satomi hadn't found a new school for Inju yet, but whatever they needed to do required money. Conveniently, Kisara informed him that Tenchi had hired him as a bodyguard. Satomi went to meet Tenchi, who told him that the chairman of the Osaka district would be visiting Tokyo. Since Satomi's foster father was giving a lecture in China, Tenchi needed Satomi to act as her bodyguard. Tenchi already had a security team, led by Takudo, who also wanted Satomi's help. However, Satomi was there to hear the explanation for being chosen, not to accept the job immediately. Tenchi awaited his decision. As Satomi was leaving, he got lost, and Takudo approached him, demanding that he decline the job, as the bodyguard position was his. Satomi responded by drawing his gun, forcing Takudo to leave. Security arrived due to the gunshot, and Satomi asked them to tell Tenchi that he would accept the job. On his way out, Satomi saw a group of thugs bullying a girl and intervened. Seeing that he was with civil security, the thugs fled. Satomi wiped the girl's face and checked on her. Noticing that she was very sleepy, she introduced herself as Tina, a night owl. The girl, Tina, couldn't remember much about where she lived and other details, so Satomi gave her his number in case she needed help. She tried calling him to be sure, then remembered her address and went home. That night, it was revealed that Tina was actually an assassin sent from another district to kill Tenchi. After getting home and preparing her gear, she was spotted by a police officer. The officer thought she was a runaway, but Tina's handler instructed her to take care of the kind officer. Satomi and Inju, returning from shopping, noticed the aftermath of the incident but decided to head home. While they were preparing dinner, a girl collapsed in front of their house. Satomi recognized her as Miori, the daughter of the chairman of a weapons corporation. Kisara also arrived and asked Satomi to cook for her, eventually collapsing as well. Satomi asked Inju to keep an eye on the two girls, as they hated each other and would cause trouble if left alone. Once the girls started eating, they began arguing. Kisara accused Miori of freeloading, while Miori pointed out that her family's company had provided Satomi with countless free bullets, with the condition that he attend her school and potentially become her family's son-in-law. So, gentlemen, which side would you choose? On one side, a wealthy heiress with undeniable background. On the other, a beautiful, self-reliant girl with a not insignificant family background. Leave your opinions in the comments. The girls drew swords and guns on each other, so Satomi and Inju moved the table to the corner. As a result, Satomi's living expenses went up again. The next morning, he went to Tenshi's place to work as a bodyguard and meet the chairman of Osaka. Tenshi, aware of his acquaintance with the chairman, advised caution, referring to him as a dictator. When they met, the chairman greeted Satomi, who was surprised to see him alive. The chairman remarked on Satomi destroying the railgun he intended to send to the moon. Satomi knew that if the chairman succeeded, he would use the weapon to threaten other countries. The chairman's ideology was deeply concerning to Satomi, who was relieved that Tenshi didn't agree with his plans. There were rumors that the chairman was collaborating with other countries. He was trading Japan's black metal for money and weapons from these nations. Tenshi had a vision of uniting Japan's districts, but in light of the current situation, she worried that many would be sent to assassinate her. She selfishly wished to work with Satomi for a long time, as very few people could give her the sense of reliability that he did. Inju then woke up and mentioned having a bad feeling. Satomi started watching out the window. When a flash of light appeared, he immediately had Tenshi duck down. A bullet flew by, forcing him to get her out of the car. More bullets came, so Inju shielded them, allowing the other bodyguards to escort Tenshi to safety. Satomi couldn't identify the shooter, who had already fled. The next morning, Satomi met Tina again and bought her some food. He was unaware of the previous night's shooter. Despite investigating suspicious individuals, there were no leads. Satomi noticed Tina sprinkling something on her food to stay alert, but she couldn't eat it herself, so he fed her. Tina liked Satomi because he treated her kindly. It had been a long time since she felt joy like this. However, her handler called her away for her next mission, to target Kisara. Satomi then went back to school to see Miori. Kisara wanted to intervene, as she couldn't leave Satomi alone with Miori, but Satomi was immediately pulled inside, and Kisara knew that breaking the door would mean paying for damages. Inside, Miori had information about the previous night's incident. Based on the angle of the shots, she located the assassin's position. Satomi asked her to investigate the Osaka chairman. Miori still wanted Satomi to join her company and was willing to offer herself completely to him. Kisara burst in, interrupting them. Miori's provocations made it difficult for Satomi to explain, as Kisara was notoriously stubborn. Satomi told the teacher about the incident, who laughed, commenting that Satomi was indeed charming and gallant, but lacked the confidence to make any girl his own. The reason the teacher called Satomi was because he had reached a high enough rank to receive some information. She revealed that she was the chairperson of the Human Evolution Project, which involved 4 countries. The project faced significant challenges, and they discovered that cursed children had superior combat abilities. Thus, they paired mechanized soldiers with cursed children to fight together. Most mechanized soldiers held high ranks, so if Satomi wanted to investigate his origins, he would likely face opponents as strong as or stronger than Haruko. With their conversation over, the teacher advised Satomi to go calm Kisara, as she had matters to discuss with Inju. Meanwhile, Tina received further instructions from her handler, who mentioned that Kisara had a pair of civil security agents working under her. Hearing Inju's name made Tina drop her phone, and the call ended. Tina then went to Kisara's office and started shooting. Kisara hid and then charged out, slicing through Tina's gun. However, Tina retaliated and choked Kisara. Kisara called out Satomi's name, causing Tina to hesitate. Satomi rushed in to attack, shocking Tina with his presence. She fired at Satomi to drive him away, but he held on, allowing Kisara to slash through the floor. Tina quickly escaped, and Kisara was taken to the hospital for dialysis due to her long-standing kidney issues. Satomi urged her to undergo kidney surgery soon, but there were no available donors. Learning from Miori, Kisara decided to hold Satomi's hand, but Inju suddenly interrupted. The attack on Kisara and the assassination attempt on Tenshi seemed connected, and they felt responsible for letting Tina escape. Satomi wondered about the conversation between the teacher and Inju, who found it confusing as it involved complex physics. Kisara wanted Satomi to stop Tina, and he vowed to do so regardless of her wishes. He then accompanied Tenchi again, urging her to stay safe as he was sure the Osaka chairman was behind the plot. Tenchi played dumb, speaking of peace, but was ready to accept the consequences. At the meeting venue, they were attacked, and Satomi shielded Tenchi, getting injured. He instructed the driver to head to the parking garage while bullets continued to fly. Satomi sent Inju to deal with Tina, believing she would be safe. However, Tenchi arrived and informed him that she had investigated Tina and discovered that Tina was a high-ranking mechanized soldier, meaning Inju wouldn't stand a chance against her. When Satomi called Inju, it was Tina who answered. He then rushed to the hospital, where the doctor told him Inju was stable, but would be in a coma for 2 days. Kisara informed him that Tenchi had another meeting scheduled for the following evening. Satomi remembered the scene where Inju was shot from 4 different directions, and 3 machine guns had been destroyed. Feeling lost, he wondered if he should quit his job, as both Kisara and Inju were injured, and he couldn't defeat Tina. He then encountered Takudo and asked him to create a fake plan while he personally took charge of protecting Tenchi. Satomi then went to his teacher and asked her to research mini drones to help him fight Tina, as he wanted to improve his rank and uncover the world's secrets. He then called Miori and went to her place to train. With his mechanized eye, he processed information faster, but the results showed that his current speed was only 1/6 of Tina's. That night, Tina planned her assassination but found the position suspiciously exposed. She left, hoping Satomi wouldn't show up. But fate had them confront each other. Satomi was determined to find a way to defeat Tina at all costs. He dodged bullets from a distance and took cover inside a building. He spotted drones and shot them down. Miori called to inform him about the remote-controlled machine guns. He was discovered and had to hide as the guns targeted him. Miori explained that there were 5 guns around 3 buildings, with Tina likely in the middle one. Satomi ascended higher and encountered 2 drones. He quickly shot them down as they scanned him. Reaching the rooftop, he spotted Tina and jumped up to confront her. He noticed she had left her gun behind, just as Miori had reported. While checking the radar, Tina leaped down to attack. Tina gradually overpowered Satomi, and just as he was about to pull out a bomb, she sent a drone ahead and threw a knife to detonate it, blasting him into a wall. He noticed that the bomb seemed not to have exploded. On the verge of giving up, Inju's voice urged him on, and a flashbang went off, temporarily blinding Tina. Satomi seized the opportunity to defeat her. Tina asked him to finish her off, but he carried her outside instead. Tina, believing her sole purpose was to fight, felt lost without it and told Satomi he must take responsibility. Suddenly, Takudo shot Tina. He restrained Satomi and aimed to finish Tina off. But Tenchi arrived and stopped him. She had left the meeting to know Satomi's deepest desire. He wished for the power to protect those he loved. Tenchi promoted him to rank 300, granting him authority higher than Takudo's. Satomi then shot Takudo's finger and warned him never to touch his people again, threatening to shoot him for treason. A few days later, Satomi learned that the Osaka chairman had left without any evidence linking him to Tina. Returning to Kisara's company, he found Inju recovered and Kisara accepting Tina into their fold. As she had nowhere else to go, Tina wished for Satomi's help, but he bluntly stated he wouldn't take responsibility for her while she was there. A few days later, Satomi taught children outside of town. The kids constantly teased that he and Inju were planning a wedding, but Satomi only saw Inju as a house guest. When asked about him and Kisara, she denied being in a relationship with him. Tenchi visited to inform Satomi that a monster was corroding the black metal block protecting the town. They could create a replacement in 9 days, but the current block would be destroyed in 3 days, allowing the monsters to invade and destroy the city. She needed him to assemble a civil security team to fight and buy time until the replacement was ready. That evening, Satomi found Tina and Inju waiting for him. Tina had made dinner pizza, as it was the only dish she could make. That night, after Inju went to sleep, Tina had a heart-to-heart conversation with Satomi. Tina knew about the impending threat to the city and decided she would fight alongside Satomi. Satomi was unsure how to deal with the monster, so he planned to recruit more people. Tina was determined to fight with him because he had saved her life. The next morning, when Kisara came to pick up Tina, Satomi couldn't find her. She emerged from under the blanket, grateful to Satomi for teaching her new things the previous night. Everyone misunderstood the situation, and Kisara immediately called the police without listening to any explanation. Satomi then took Tina to recruit soldiers. They also took the opportunity to have some fun. When they reached a clothing store and found the prices too high, they left. They played at a fountain and then went to see stuffed animals. On their way, they encountered a blind cursed child. Satomi believed that cursed children were immune to diseases, but this girl had blinded herself after hearing her mother say she hated her eyes. Seeing people treating her cruelly, Satomi gave the girl some money and sent her home. She then heard people protesting. Satomi and Tina visited his acquaintances, the Katajiri brothers. They knew about the Black Bloc and his recruitment efforts, but the older brother demanded compensation. If it was just a rank increase and a few other perks, they weren't interested. Satomi wanted them to fight for him, but they only served those stronger than them. So, the four of them sparred in the backyard. Satomi found it too easy and noticed the area was filled with wires. Tina dodged continuously, knowing exactly where the wires were. She controlled the wires to restrain the younger brother when he attacked. She admitted that the brothers were strong because they could challenge a high-ranking soldier like her. Satomi then took Tina to meet his teacher, whom Tina had heard of but never met. They entered the building but hadn't found the teacher yet. While searching the room, the teacher suddenly lunged at Tina. It turned out she hadn't eaten in a long time. She scrutinized Tina and thought Satomi might be in trouble. Satomi denied kidnapping Tina. Tina trusted him, but the teacher fabricated a lot of perverted things Satomi supposedly did. Tina was starting to believe them, but Satomi advised her not to listen. The teacher mentioned that Shuma had come looking for Satomi the other day. When Tina asked about Shuma, Satomi explained that he was his senior during martial arts training. Shuma was so strong that Satomi could never beat him, but he suddenly left the dojo without any explanation. Tina knew she would soon be hunted, so she was considering leaving Kisara's company. Both the teacher and Satomi called Tina foolish for thinking that way. Satomi wasn't weak enough to need her to worry. Since Tina didn't hate them, there was no problem. Tina then fell asleep, and the teacher noted that both Inju and Tina were still young. However, cursed children would eventually be consumed by the virus and die. The teacher said that if Satomi wanted to change the world, he would have to become a politician. But Satomi was confident that there were many ways to change the world, and one of them was to exterminate all monsters. The teacher laughed, finding him different from her, as he had an exceptionally pure soul. She then opened some classified documents for him. Although some information had been supposedly erased, it was still there, locked away from access. Suddenly, Kisara called, urging him to watch the news immediately. The media had discovered that the black metal block was turning white, and they reported it to the entire city. Tenchi had to hold a press conference to address the issue. She was questioned about knowing that the block would soon change color and lose its effectiveness, but not informing the public. The older Katajiri brother commented on the wave of criticism Tenchi was facing. Moreover, the wealthy had bought all the plane tickets to leave the city, leading to potential riots. The three young girls criticized their tent, which looked like a ragged cloth, so Satomi needed to recruit another pair quickly to receive proper supplies. Satomi and Inju searched for suitable candidates. Inju found a pair, but Satomi noted that people wearing such heavy armor were usually too afraid of death to be useful in dangerous missions. Inju then found a group wearing minimal armor, but they looked too strange, so they moved on. After a long search with no success, they discovered a group gathering nearby and went to check it out, only to find the heavily armored individual had been killed. Both Satomi and Inju went back down to see what was happening as there seemed to be a brawl. Satomi recognized his senior, Shuma, being harassed by a large man. Shuma sent his partner aside while his partner cut through the large man's gun. Satomi approached to reunite with his senior. Shuma had heard about Satomi's recent achievements and wanted to join his team to fight. Satomi asked if Shuma had anything to do with the armored man's death, but Shuma denied knowing anything. That evening, Shuma introduced himself to the Katajiri brothers. His partner, Fuse, was a cat girl who wore a hat to hide her cat ears. Currently, their group consisted of 6 people, but Satomi wanted to recruit up to 10 for better support. Suddenly, Kisara arrived, looking for Tina. Although Tina's rank had been temporarily revoked, Kisara had pleaded with Tenchi to allow Tina to continue fighting. Kisara was also surprised to see Shuma, but Satomi pulled her aside. He reminded her that her illness was still present, so he hadn't planned on letting her fight. However, Tina also pleaded on Kisara's behalf. Kisara then used her authority as chairman to order Satomi to let her fight. Suddenly, someone arrived with news that the commander requested an assembly. The commander, Gadu, introduced himself and gave a rousing speech to boost morale, outlining their plan to protect the team installing the new tower. Satomi raised his hand and suggested that if they needed to protect the installation team, they should move the camp closer to the area to better handle any unforeseen events. However, Gadu stated they would only provide support if the replacement team requested it, dismissing Satomi's suggestion. Returning to the group, Satomi sat in a corner, feeling dejected. He wondered if Kisara truly wanted to fight alongside him. Fearing something might happen to her, Kisara assured him that she didn't want to just sit and pray while he put himself in danger. They stared at each other, and Satomi considered expressing his feelings, but Tina interrupted. Others followed, assuming the two were getting romantic despite the dire situation. Satomi then reintroduced himself along with the whole group. He thanked everyone for lending him the strength to rebuild the black metal block. Inju believed that now the group was almost complete, they could recite the slogan to boost their spirits. The next morning, Satomi and Kisara returned to teach the children. He asked the class to write their future dreams on paper. No one knew what to write. Satomi felt that by doing this, they might partially forget the tension caused by the metal weapon. The uncle also thanked both of them for coming to teach during this tense time. Inju then submitted her paper and expressed her desire to become Satomi's wife. Tina also submitted her paper with a similar wish. As the class ended, he asked everyone to hand in their papers, but since no one had finished, he asked Kisara how much money they had left and decided to take the whole class on a field trip. He took the children on a train and led them to the statue of the primordial flame. Years ago, the city had been attacked by monsters twice, and after winning the second battle, this statue was erected to commemorate the victory and honor those who sacrificed their lives. The children, having heard about the annual memorial festival organized by the city, were worried that they might not live to see it. However, the reason he brought them here was to give them the motivation to believe in him and the government's ability to protect them. Satomi and Kisara would also fight to protect the students they had. Suddenly, the kids gathered around and decided to accept him. They all decided they would be his wives in the future. Inju and Tina hugged him to claim him exclusively, but others also rushed to embrace Satomi. That night, when everyone had gone to sleep, Kisara came to find Satomi and wanted to take a walk with him. She led him to the metal block, which had been severely corroded. This block would need smaller pieces built remotely and brought here to be reassembled. But what if the monster sprayed corrosive fluid again? However, it seemed that the monster hadn't shown up since the metal block malfunctioned, so Satomi suspected it needed to recharge. He then asked Kisara to investigate. She lay down on the grass and wanted Satomi to lie down with her. She admitted that she was very happy to have Satomi, Inju, and Tina at the company, as it felt like a family. But this happiness could easily end, and that scared her. He vowed to protect her, and that he and the two girls would not go anywhere. He held Kisara's hand, and she realized that the day was almost over. In just 2 more days, the metal block would be destroyed. The next day, the city was noticeably emptier as the shelter had been completed, but only 30% of the population could be accommodated, leading people to doubt the evacuation plan. As Satomi walked down the street, he saw the blind girl from before being bullied and ran to help her. The girl apologized to Satomi for breaking her promise not to do this kind of work anymore. He then told the bullies to leave and fired his gun. He helped the girl and told her to go home this time and not come back. She touched his face to memorize what he looked like. That afternoon, he returned to the camp and heard that Kisara was unhappy teaching today. Without Satomi, none of the children accepted her. He tried to comfort her, but it was in vain. Katajiri handed Kisara a stack of papers that someone had sent today. These were the results of her investigation into the metal block. She discovered something and immediately threw the papers into the fire. Satomi tried to retrieve them and found out it was related to Kisara's family. Satomi continued teaching for one more day to bid farewell to the students. The Katajiri brothers thought he was only causing more trouble, but he wanted to take responsibility for them. He went to Kisara's tent, where Tina was about to wake Kisara, but he told her they could go together later. Both he and Inju had plans for what to do on their last day before the mission. However, when they arrived, they saw police officers surrounding the area. Sensing something was wrong, he ran over to check and witnessed a bomb crater. He was then taken by the police to identify the bodies, and they were all his students, killed by the bomb explosion. Outside, he met Inju, who had come running. He told Inju to go home, but she wanted to see her friends. He asked the police to take her away, but she used her powers to force her way in and then cried out at the scene. He could do nothing but stand there, feeling helpless. Satomi went up to the rooftop to look at the dreams his students had written on paper, but they were all blown away by the wind. Kisara called to let him know that Tina had calmed down. He realized that this incident was caused by those who opposed and hated the cursed children. As he found a piece of black metal among the bomb fragments, he was unsure for whom and for what he and Inju were fighting. If they were enforcers of justice, then where was that justice in this filthy world? She wanted him to fight to save those people, hoping they would partially change their views about the cursed children. He felt that this job was indeed ridiculous. Suddenly, the entire tower collapsed. The reason was that they hadn't anticipated the wind force, causing it to fall earlier than expected. Kisara would get there first, while Satomi went to call Inju. The girl was still in a daze, and when he mentioned the tower collapse, she was forced to pull herself together to join him in battle. The civil security forces were then waiting to see how the government troops would fight. The explosions suddenly stopped, leading them to think the army had won. But then a tank flew back, and a horde of monsters began to flood in. Satomi's group noticed a flying monster that could flank them. However, leaving their position would result in charges of disobedience, but the group followed his lead. They abandoned their position and ran into the forest to attack the monsters there. Everyone coordinated well and supported each other to ensure no one was in danger. Afterward, they returned to the battlefield, but the monsters had already wiped out everything. The remaining people were all gored by the monster. He saw the commander standing there. When he approached and asked, he learned that everything was over. Among the monsters, there was something called the Spear of Light. Despite being dead, the commander and his comrades still held hands, and now he fell straight down into the monster's maw. Satomi then witnessed how terrifying the Spear of Light was. It shot randomly across the battlefield, destroying everything it touched. The monsters suddenly turned and retreated. What remained after the battle was nothing but ruins. Half of their forces had perished. Even though the monsters had been killed, they could still reproduce. After tonight, the battle would be 500 civil security forces against 2,000 monsters, an entirely hopeless number. The next day, Satomi returned to the field hospital and saw Inju working there. Kisara praised her for helping the soldiers feel better. His teacher also arrived and mentioned that she had been given a ticket to the shelter, but had torn it up instead of giving it to someone else. She believed that people would kill each other for it anyway, and did not trust that a shelter could protect everyone. She chose to stay here to encourage those who dared to face danger. Human thoughts are often logical, but their actions are based on emotion. She wanted Satomi to act, too, because if he stopped, death would catch up with him. When he asked about Inju, the teacher could only express regret for her friends. However, she still believed that Inju was strong enough to endure more than they imagined. For now, they would avoid mentioning anything that would remind Inju of the sad event. The teacher then allowed all three of them to go home and rest. They went to an abandoned mansion in the forest. This was a temporary resting place that Shuma had found. As soon as they entered, Tina cleaned it up thoroughly. They would only stay for a few days, but cleanliness was still better. Even in summer, they had to light the fireplace because the dust from the black pillar had covered the sky, making it cold for the next few days. The group then sat down to eat and drink happily like a family. They wondered why the monster had retreated last time. Kisara called Satomi over, saying there was something they needed to discuss. It was about the patients hit by the spear of light. Most of them were deaf and blind, symptoms similar to mercury poisoning. Tina had also seen a level 4 monster that seemed capable of shooting mercury, as Kisara described, but she couldn't convey the image clearly. Suddenly, a soldier came to Satomi and told him to meet Commander Gadu. The commander had lost a leg in battle and asked about his son's last moments. Satomi had to lie, saying the young man had fought very bravely. He felt he was quite mistaken in letting his son join the civil security forces. Satomi had discovered the secret about the large monster in the battle. He learned that the big one secreted a substance called pheromone, which attracted the surrounding monsters towards it. The fact that it was injured caused the entire horde to retreat. Therefore, if they could kill the big one, the rest of the monsters would disperse. But he knew that it was immortal because he had tried to strike its brain and heart. Yet it still regenerated. He also knew about the monster that shot the spear of light, which was just as dangerous as the big one. The two monsters were like the king and queen, so to win, they had to take down both. However, he now mentioned that Satomi and his group had left their position without orders. Even though Satomi explained they went to handle the rear guard, orders were still orders. He decided to disband Satomi's group and execute him to set an example. When Satomi resisted, his associate knocked him out. The method of execution was to force Satomi to infiltrate the monsters and eliminate the queen. In return, his team would not be punished. Satomi silently packed his belongings and left. Kisara discovered him, but he didn't want her to follow. She wanted to run away together, but there was no place left to hide. He had to go alone, and on the way, he was attacked by a pack of dogs. He fired his gun to fend them off and ran, but they dragged him into the river. Clinging to a rock, he was surrounded on the shore. Suddenly, the dogs turned away, and when they returned, they were all dead. He encountered Haruko and Hina again. Haruko was still alive and had come to help him. Satomi remained cautious of him, so Haruko reminded him that he had given Satomi medicine and bandages to heal his wounds. When asked what he was doing, Satomi mentioned he was on a mission to kill the monster. Haruko had seen the monster that shot Mercury, as Satomi was searching for, because he had observed the battle yesterday. The reason he didn't participate was that he didn't care for peace. He wore a mask because no one wanted to see his face. If they did, they would regret it. Haruko knew Satomi envied his power, and he envied Satomi's happy life. Thus, he was determined to show Satomi what true joy was. He was certain that Satomi would eventually join his side. The next morning, Satomi met Haruko again, who gave him the location of the queen monster. Satomi set off, with Haruko following because he also wanted to confront the monster. The three of them reached the monster's lair, and Haruko pointed out the part of the monster he had seen with degenerated limbs, which required other monsters to feed and move it. Satomi initially planned to blow it up with explosives, but his backpack had been swept away by the river. Haruko wanted to tackle it using his mechanized body parts, but he needed Satomi's help as he couldn't do it alone. Both of them charged in, delivering powerful blows that caused the monster to scream in pain. It only managed to fire one shot before collapsing completely. The smaller monsters were alarmed and started running around chaotically. Satomi experienced complications from his wounds and was gored, but Hina came to his rescue. The three of them took shelter in a corner and discovered that the large monster was among those fleeing. Satomi rushed to report to Tenchi to send in the aircraft because they had taken down the queen. She dispatched jets to drop missiles on the monsters. The large monster retaliated against the planes, and even after being hit in the head, it remained, as Gadu had said, immortal. The ensuing battle was fierce, and when Satomi returned to the camp, most of it was in ruins. However, Enju was safe and ran to hug him, upset that he had gone alone. He also reunited with Kisara, who informed him that he would be the new commander since Gadu had sacrificed himself. He went to see Gadu's body and admitted that he didn't hate him. Down below, there was trouble as people were arguing with Haruko because he had beaten up a few people in the camp, but he was simply responding to their challenges. Hino wanted to fight Inju, but Katajiri's sister held her back. Satomi asserted that now was not the time to argue. They should focus on defeating the monsters. Haruko decided he would closely observe Satomi's ability to lead. Satomi later met Shuma and asked about his partner, Midori, who was in the infirmary. She had been injured while helping someone else, and her sensory abilities had been compromised by the toxin. The rate of her corrosion was approaching a critical level. Haruko suggested that Satomi should end Midori's suffering himself. Satomi then went to visit Midori and listened to her talk about her life. Midori also sensed a strong scent of destruction around Kisara and warned that it would be easy for her to lose her way in the darkness. However, she believed that if Satomi was the leader, Kisara would be fine. Midori then asked to go outside to use the bathroom. Satomi couldn't follow her, and after a while, he and the others went looking for her. They found Shuma standing in front of Midori, who had taken her own life to avoid being a burden to everyone. Shuma said that he and Midori were very similar. He explained that he hadn't left the dojo. He had been expelled because he had modified the martial arts techniques, making them more suitable for a civil security officer than for continuing in the dojo. Satomi wanted to apologize, but Shuma said that the blame lay with the monsters. If Satomi wanted to do something, he should kill the king monster for him. Shuma encouraged Satomi to make it happen. The next morning, Satomi put on the commander's uniform and went to meet the other civil security officers. They didn't want him as their leader and wanted to flee. Satomi stepped down and stabbed one of them to make his point. When they retaliated, Haruko blocked the attack for him. Satomi declared that anyone who defied or attempted to flee would be dealt with, as he was not as kind as Gadu. Kisara questioned his actions, but Satomi explained that everyone was afraid of the monsters, so he needed them to fear him more than the monster. He acknowledged that no one would like him, but at this time, he didn't need their approval. Kisara promised to stay by his side, even if others opposed him. Gadu's associate accused Satomi of becoming a dictator, but Satomi argued that he couldn't be like Gadu because their previous losses were due to Gadu's decisions. When a girl threatened to stab Satomi, Shuma intervened, asking her to cooperate with him. She said she didn't serve two masters, but Shuma only needed her cooperation for the upcoming battle. Later, several helicopters arrived, and their owner, Miori, appeared. Satomi had called her to act as a strategist because no one else was willing to help them except Miori's family. She knew that within half a day, the king monster's horde would attack, and she brought a bomb to help Satomi completely destroy the monster. However, they would need to bore a hole into the monster's body and throw the bomb inside, waiting for it to regenerate before detonating. Satomi was the only one capable of piercing that armor. Miori suggested they relocate their camp, and they moved to the statue of the primordial flame. Once there, everyone prepared to face the approaching monster. Satomi saw Inju standing alone, reminiscing about the times she and her friends had gathered there with him. He had forgotten that bringing Inju here would remind her of her painful memories. Satomi tried to encourage Inju, saying there would come a time when she would decide whether or not to save this world. But for now, they needed to keep it alive. Satomi's team was now officially complete with 10 members, and the monster was ready to rampage. Do you remember the bodyguard Takudo, whom Satomi shot in the hand and drove away? He had returned for revenge. Satomi's forces had only 10 minutes left before the monster horde arrived, but there was no sign of them yet. Suddenly, they appeared and approached like a storm. It was a fight to the death. Either they would be destroyed, or the monsters would. Suddenly, many lanterns were released into the air. Satomi received a call from Tenchi and learned that she was behind this. These lanterns carried the hopes of the people, and she believed it would motivate Satomi to fight. Satomi saw this as the bright side of humanity. It was time to begin the operation, so Satomi ordered his troops to open fire. The flying monsters were gradually pushed back by human gunfire. Once the monsters were thinned out, Satomi moved to Phase 2, which was to charge in and fight. He was repeatedly blocked by larger monsters, but his friends always stepped in to handle them for him, from Kisara to the Katajiri brothers, Shuma, and finally Haruko. they successfully cleared a path for Satomi to reach the boss monster. Satomi and Inju charged together. The monster fired spikes in defense, but Satomi pierced through them all. He punched a hole in its body, stuffed the bomb inside, and fled with Inju. However, as Satomi was counting down, Miori informed him that the bomb had malfunctioned and needed a physical impact to detonate. Satomi knew what he had to do, so he bid farewell to Inju and thanked her for the past year. Inju refused to leave, so Satomi knocked her out with a punch. He tried to approach the monster again, but it spit acid, damaging his legs. Feeling helpless, he couldn't do anything more. At that moment, Shuma arrived. He decided to take over Satomi's task because his techniques could impact the inside of the monster. This was also a heresy, so he had to bury it himself. Shuma charged and delivered a punch that reactivated the bomb, dragging the monster along with him. When Satomi woke up, the only thing left was a bomb crater. Shuma had sacrificed himself to take the monster with him. The smaller monsters had fled the city. Metal blocks were now being transported in to rebuild. However, Kisara and Satomi returned to the dojo. Kisara had called her brother, who was also the deputy minister of construction, and was involved in the construction of the metal pillars. She knew her brother had embezzled funds and used substandard materials to build the previous tower. This meant he had caused this conflict. The two siblings decided to duel, putting their lives on the line. Kisara used her self-created swordsmanship, launching an extremely fast attack. Her brother couldn't even see the move before he lost a leg. She demanded he reveal the truth about their parents' deaths. Years ago, their father had planned to expose the dark side of the family, leading to his assassination by family members and their grandfather. The monster attacks in the city were no coincidence. Angrily, she walked away, telling Satomi to close the door. Kisara revealed to Satomi that her technique involved 2 strikes and wasn't aimed only at the leg. Her brother inside had been cut in half. Hearing his screams, Satomi turned back and witnessed the horrifying scene. Kisara believed her sense of justice was now lost. She decided to become a demon herself to face the other demons in her family. This would be her revenge. Satomi told the 2 girls that in the future, he might have to consider Kisara an enemy. A few days later, Tenchi held a press conference to assure the public that everything was now under control and to announce stricter laws to protect the children. Satomi and Inju were invited to an awards ceremony, but their train broke down and stopped midway. Satomi reflected on all the losses he had faced and feared that he was becoming numb to those losses. He asked Inju to stay by his side before he truly changed. Inju hugged him and promised to stay with Satomi forever. And with that, the story came to an end.